Have you guys been able to talk?
Not really.
Yo, not really? That's it? That's the answer. 9 years, a championship, 2 finals run, and that's what he says. Before I break down why this answer is way bigger than it sounds, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, what are you doing? Get subscribed right now, tap that like button before you even finish this video, and drop a comment the second you've got to take, because I'm reading every single one when this video comes out. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Hoop Kage, and today we're doing a full timeline, not just a trade, not just what we heard the other day, all of it from the day that these two got drafted to the championship to the injury year, and that changed everything, to the smartest guy in the room saga, all the way to what Brown has said a few days ago. This is one of the longs in terms of what we cover today, so buckle up and let's get started. So to understand why 2 words from the press conference are making headlines, you have to go back to 2016, where Brown got drafted 3rd overall by the Celtics. A year later, Boston landed Tatum in the 3rd overall pick. 2 elite wings, 1 draft class apart on the same roster, both expected to be the guy eventually. The question never got a clean answer, not once in 9 seasons. Tatum became a higher usage scorer, the all NBA fixture, the face of the billboards. Brown became the guy who would constantly, be compared, constantly ranked, constantly asked in every interview how it felt to be the second option. 2 All-Stars, 2 max contracts, 1 franchise that never had to, pick until, the money made them. And in terms of the stat break here, for 9 seasons together, Boston never finished outside the top 6 in the East with both of them healthy. That is not just a duo that underperformed. That's a duo that won an elite level while, who the alpha conversation followed them into, every single postseason. Now, the championship and how it complicated everything. Boston won it out back in 2024, and here's what the twist that caused a lot of casual fans miss. It's not Tatum, the franchise cornerstone who took, home finals MVP. It was Brown, Jaylen Brown, both, Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP, the same guy. Think about it. What is the locker room dynamic that already was sensitive with the first option? The guy who was supposed to be the second option just became the best player on the championship team on a bigger stage in the sport in front of everyone. Now, publicly, nothing but smiles. The banner goes up, both those guys post pictures, everybody says the right things, but the relationship like this rarely gets resolved just because a trophy shows up. If anything, it adds a layer to a question that never actually settled. Fast forward to last season. Tatum tears his Achilles and misses almost the entire season, all but 16 games. For the first time in nearly a decade, Brown isn't sharing the offense and isn't sharing the same spotlight, isn't sharing anything. It's his team and his time, and this is what exactly he did. In terms of the stats, because this is what it matters, Jaylen Brown respond with a career year averaging 28.7 points per game. He was 4th, I think it was 3rd in the NBA in scoring, 6.9 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists, shooting 47.7% from the field, 2nd team All NBA, 6th in MVP voting. He drags the roster that a lot of people had projected on a lottery team to 56 wins and the 2nd seed. Now, Boston did lose in the first round when it's over. Brown says something that still is echoing through the entire story that season. The one where they got bounced out early, the one where Tatum was hurt, it was his favorite season of his career. That's one thing that he did mention. Not the championship year. He said this previous season was his favorite season. Now, sit with that for a second. If you're Jayson Tatum, your co-star's favorite season in a decade together is the season where you weren't even playing. That's the moment of a lot of people started wondering if this partnership had actually run its course. And here's where I have to bring up the elephant in the room, the jealousy angle. Because let's be honest with ourselves, for a second, right? Brown didn't just play, well without Tatum. He won Finals MVP the year they actually won it all, and they, for the next year with Tatum sidelined for the entire season, he puts up career numbers, got the team to the 2nd seed, and was an actual MVP conversation. Not just he had a nice year, it was a legitimate MVP candidate carrying a team that most people rolled off. If you're the guy who's supposed to be the unquestionable face of the franchise and your co-star wins Finals MVP on your championship, team, and then a year later thrives even in the, more moments, you're not even in the building when he's thriving in those moments. That's not just a small thing, it's a huge thing. I'm not saying that Tatum's out here rooting against his own team. I'm saying it would be almost inhuman for a competitor at the level not to feel something when the story of the season becomes the team was actually better positioned for an MVP conversation without, your franchise guy. Now, the biggest thing is where the trade happened. July 1st. Boston trades Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George. Within the days, anonymous stats starts flowing. Now, this does come after when they're trying to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo to pair him up with Jayson Tatum. So they were going to trade Jaylen Brown regardless. But this kind of stuff never gets said while a guy is still in the building, though. There are rumors roaming out, crazy rumors, especially, him being the smartest guy in every room. The real quote attributed to two separate, NBA executives on national television about a Finals MVP. Brown doesn't just, let it sit. He goes on his own Twitch stream the next day and answers it directly, pushing out on the entire, framing. Says intelligence shows up in different forms in terms of that bar in professional sports for what, that counts as smart. It's embarrassing low, essentially. Now, a couple weeks later, Tatum is now its own foundation youth basketball camp, giving a total normal leadership talk to a gym full of kids, asking questions, not acting like you know everything. Then he says the line, "I don't want to be the smartest person in the room," at his camp. Almost word for word for the phrase attached to Brown for 3 straight weeks, and instead of the clip disappearing into the camp footage, Tatum personally posted it on his own Instagram story. To be fair, this is the part that matters. Tatum has never confirmed that clip was about Brown. Every outlet covering it seamlessly. It's technically possible it's one of the wildest coincidence in recent NBA history, but when you line up the timing, the phrasing, and the fact that he chose to post it himself, coincidence? Well, gets harder to believe with every watch. Then came the goodbye pose. Brown thanked several teammates, coaches, staff by name on his way out the door. Tatum's name was noticeably absent. Now, here is a detail that gets lost in all noises. When reporters asked Celtics president Brad Stevens how much input Tatum had in trading his co-star of the 9 years, the answer essentially none. When they asked the head coach, Joe Mazzulla, the same question, same answer, no individual input, just organizational alignment. So officially, the best player on the team had no to say. The head coach had no to say. And somehow the trade still happened. Somebody made the call, and nobody in that building wants to put their name attached to it publicly. To Mazzulla's credit, he's been nothing but complimentary about Brown since the trade, talking about how much Brown pushed him in the locker room and saying he's grateful for what Brown gave to the program for a decade. Generally warm stuff. What makes the slants from Tatum's side stands out even more, essentially, because Tatum's been silent throughout this whole process. Now, the press conference that recently happened. What brings us in terms of this video? Brown's introductory press conference as a 76er. First time addressing any of this directly on camera since the trade became official. Asked about the relationship with Tatum, Brown, gave the safe answer first. We won a championship together, so anybody, that you win a championship with, you would think like that's brotherhood or a lifelong legacy would entail. Obviously, there's ups and downs in any type of relationship, but on my end, there's nothing but respect. Then he added the line that's actually spreading everywhere right now. Besides, when he plays for the Sixers, I hope he does well. But other than that, everything is just based on respect. The polite professional answer with a very specific carve out inside it. And then came to the question everyone asked, everyone wanted to answer, have the two of them spoken since the trade? And Brown didn't even address that at all. All he said was, not really. That's the headline. 9 years, a championship, 2 finals runs, and a month later, the honest answer is not really. Counterpoint though, because fairness matters, former teammate Grant Williams did push back on this entire narrative on, SiriusXM, saying national media loves manufacturing storylines out of, situations like this, and that from what he saw in the locker room, he doesn't believe these two ever actually dislike each other. Could be real credible perspective from someone who's actually been in that locker room. Grant Williams was a teammate of both Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, played for the Celtics. It is worth holding next to everything else in terms of what he was saying. Now, the last thing I did want to mention was natural talent versus hard work. There was actually a video, someone made this video essentially, so I'm kind of making his points in this, but shout out to that guy. I forgot who he was, but here we go. Now, in terms of natural talent and hard work, because I think this is actually the real engine underneath the entire story. I saw, like I mentioned, short going on, exact point, the Tatum-Brown dynamics has always low-key been a natural talent versus hard work argument. Whether people wanted to admit it or not, Tatum came into the league as a polished one. Smooth footwork, high IQ, reads the guys. Scouts pegged him as a franchise cornerstone from day one. The natural. Now, in terms of Brown has always cast this other, archetype. The guy who had to outwork everybody to, be equal. The guy who showed up on media availabilities about, studying at MIT and Berkeley in the offseason, building himself instead of relying on, what he was given. And typically, when a front office had to choose between, two archetypes long term, they lean more towards the natural talent. The guy with a higher ceiling on paper, the guy, whose whole marketing plan was built around the jump. That's exactly why Boston did here. They kept Tatum, moved Brown. But here's a twist, and this is what makes this trade, fascinating. Instead of just another cap-driven business decision, the hard work guy is the one who won Finals MVP. The hard work guy is the guy who was in MVP race last season. The natural talent wasn't even available. He didn't even play Game 7. He didn't win Finals MVP. Sometimes the story doesn't play out, the way the archetype says it's supposed to. Now, with that being said, if you are new to this channel and you're rocking with the breakdown so far, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, drop a like button on this video, get in the comments. I want to know whose side are you on. Are you, in terms of the natural side with Jayson Tatum, or are you with the hard work side with Jaylen Brown? All right, back to it. Anyways, video is almost done here. Here's the stat that changes, everything about how the story plays out. This isn't a see him twice a year and move on trade. Boston sent Brown to a division rival. Preseason only has been, beating twice. October 10th at TD Garden, October 16th in Philadelphia, and then you add the regular season slate, and you're looking at 6 meetings before the playoffs even start. Stat break here. These two teams already met in last year's playoffs. The Boston, blowing a 3-1 series lead to Philadelphia. If you meet again in the postseason this year, let's say they do meet in the postseason, with this roster loaded at both sides, Philadelphia is now running Embiid, Brown, Maxey, Edgecombe, LeBron James. Boston built, Tatum, George, White, Pritchard. You could be looking at, double-digit, meetings between these two men in the single season, essentially, especially with Philadelphia probably mopping the floor out of Boston, but I wouldn't underestimate Boston despite these matchups. Now, to close here, guys. So, what actually happened here? I don't think there's a villain in this story. I think two guys got drafted a year apart in the exact same job, got told for a decade only one of them could really be the first option or the guy, and just went out and won a championship together. Anyway, while the entire league spent 9 seasons ranking them against each other, that's exhausting, way to share a locker room for that long. And the second, that pressure lifted, the second they weren't teammates anymore and didn't have to protect anything from cameras, a little bit of steam came out of both sides. Brown let it out of, in terms of the press conference, a little bit on live stream, and Tatum let it out on, his basketball camp. And in terms of, my real final take of this whole thing, teams almost always have to bet on the natural talent long term, and Boston did exactly that. And except this trade didn't just move on from, it just disgruntled co-star. It moved on from a Finals MVP who was, by every measurable stat we just went through, an actual MVP candidate. The one season he got to run the show by himself. However, this jealousy's angle actually played out behind closed doors, and basketball reality is simple. This trade sets Boston back not just for one season, for the foreseeable future and years from now on. When people look back at this era, I think we're going to talk about Tatum and Brown the same way we talk about the great duos of any era. Because in 9 years, whatever tension existed underneath the surface, these two were one of the best, if not the best, duo in the entire 2020s in terms of winning a championship, 2 finals runs, I believe 4 or 5 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Now, what do you guys think? Drop it down in your comments in terms of, are you on Tatum's side? Are you on Brown's side? Did the franchise make a great decision in terms of trading Jaylen Brown? I read all comments. Drop it down below. Other than that, leave a like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.